I am not going to respond to that question. I'm sorry. I don't think this entire line of questioning is meant to be real questions, and so I will not reply.
Whether under your watch, a genocide will take place, and you will look the other way because American interests were being upheld is a fair question, because the American people want to know.
A tense, unforgettable congressional exchange between Representative Ilhan Omar and Elliott Abrams exposes decades of U.S. foreign policy controversy. Omar confronts Abrams about his role in the Iran-Contra affair and his past dismissal of the El Mozote massacre, while Abrams struggles to defend his record. This powerful moment shows just how deep Washington's divisions run over truth, accountability, and America's global actions.
Ms. Omar.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you all for being here, and thank you for your testimonies. Mr. Adams, in 1991, you pleaded guilty to 2 counts of withholding information from Congress regarding your involvement in the Iran-Contra affair, for which you were later pardoned by President George H.W. Bush. I fail to understand why members of this committee or the American people should find any testimony that you give today to be truthful.
If I can respond to that.
It wasn't a question.
On February,
that was not a question. I reserve the right to my time.
It is not right.
That was not a question.
Committee can attack
on February 8th,
who is not permitted to reply.
That was not a question. Thank you for your participation. On February 8th, 1982, you testified before the Senate Foreign Relations Committee about U.S. policy in El Salvador. In that hearing, you dismissed as communist propaganda report about the massacre of El Mozote, in which more than 800 civilians, including children as young as 2 years old, were brutally murdered by U.S.-trained troops. During that massacre, some of those troops bragged about raping a 12-year-old girl before they killed them. Girls before they killed them. You later said that the U.S. policy in El Salvador was a fabulous achievement. Yes or no, do you still think so?
From the day that President Duarte was elected in a free election to this day, El Salvador has been a democracy. That's a fabulous achievement.
Yes or no, do you think that massacre was a fabulous achievement that happened under our watch?
That is a ridiculous question, and I
yes or no?
No.
I will take that as a yes.
I am not going to respond to that kind of personal attack, which is not a question.
Yes or no, would you support an armed faction within Venezuela that engages in war crimes, crimes against humanity or genocide, if you believe they were serving U.S. interest, as you did in Guatemala, El Salvador, and Nicaragua?
I am not going to respond to that question. I'm sorry. I don't think this entire line of questioning is meant to be real questions, and so I will not reply.
Whether under your watch, a genocide will take place, and you will look the other way because American interests were being upheld is a fair question, because the American people want to know that anytime we engage a country, that we think about what our actions could be and how we believe our values are being furthered. That is my question. Will you make sure that human rights are not violated and that we uphold international and human rights?
I suppose there is a question in there, and the answer is that the entire thrust of American policy in Venezuela is to support the Venezuelan people's effort to restore democracy to their country. That's our policy.
I don't think anybody disputes that. the question I had for you is that does the interest of the United States include protecting human rights and include protecting people against genocide?
That is always the position of the United States.
Thank you. I yield back my time.
Welcome back to Illuminate, where we bring you the truth the mainstream media won't touch. Before we dive in, make sure you subscribe and smash that like button. It helps this channel grow, and it tells big tech you want real news, not their filtered version of it. Now, what we're about to look at is one of the most heated and revealing exchanges you'll ever see inside a congressional hearing. Representative Ilhan Omar versus Elliott Abrams, the U.S. envoy once tied to the infamous Iran-Contra affair. This clash wasn't just about foreign policy. It exposed the deep ideological divide in Washington, the kind that's shaping the future of America's global power. It all begins with Ilhan Omar taking the mic, and she doesn't hold back. She brings up Elliott Abrams' 1991 guilty plea for withholding information from Congress during the Iran-Contra scandal. And she flat out says it. I fail to understand why the American people should find your testimony to be truthful. Right there, the tone is set. It's not a question. It's a statement. She's calling him a liar to his face. Abrams tries to respond, but Omar cuts him off. It wasn't a question. The tension in the room spikes. You can hear the silence, the kind that only happens when someone crosses a line of civility in Washington. Then, Omar digs deeper. She brings up his 1982 testimony before the Senate, when he dismissed reports of the El Mozote massacre in El Salvador as communist propaganda. For those who don't know, that massacre left over 800 civilians dead, including women and children, many killed by U.S.-trained forces. Omar lists the horrors, the rape, the killings, and then points out that Abrams once called U.S. policy in El Salvador a fabulous achievement. Then she looks him dead in the eye and asks, "Do you still think so?" Abrams tries to hold his ground, saying El Salvador became a democracy, that this, in his words, was a fabulous achievement. But when she presses him, "Do you think that massacre was a fabulous achievement?" he loses his patience. He calls it a ridiculous question and refuses to answer. Now here's where it gets telling. Omar shifts gears and asks if Abrams would support armed factions in places like Venezuela if they committed war crimes, as long as it served U.S. interests. Again, he won't answer directly. He says he won't respond to that kind of question. Omar fires back, asking whether genocide or human rights violations are ever acceptable under U.S. foreign policy, whether American interests justify atrocities. Abrams finally gives a polished, diplomatic response that U.S. policy supports democracy and human rights. But anyone watching could see it. He was shaken, cornered, and exposed. Now, let's be real. Whether you side with Omar or not, this exchange reveals something deep about how Washington works. For decades, bureaucrats and diplomats have operated in moral gray zones, claiming America's actions are for democracy, while turning a blind eye to what happens on the ground. Ilhan Omar brought the ghosts of America's foreign policy right to the table, and Elliott Abrams had no escape route. But here's the real question. Was Omar challenging hypocrisy? Or was she grandstanding for headlines? Because while she pressed Abrams hard, she's also been accused of defending groups and regimes that also commit atrocities. The double standards in D.C. aren't just on one side. Still, in that room, for a few fiery minutes, Omar shattered the usual politeness of Congress and forced a career diplomat to confront the ugly consequences of U.S. interests. And whether you agree with her or not, that's something Washington rarely allows. What do you think? Was Ilhan Omar right to grill Elliott Abrams the way she did? Or was this a political ambush meant to score points? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. If you found this breakdown eye-opening, hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Because here on Illuminate, we shine a light on the stories others try to bury. Until next time, stay sharp, stay aware, and never stop questioning the people who claim to lead.